Night instead of just a bunch of empty chairs. So I'm glad to have everyone here. Could we go ahead and have a roll call, please, Robin?
All right, Commissioner Hensick. Chair Stevens,
Here.
Vice Chair Scott,
Here.
Commissioner Hammond,
Here.
Commissioner Roughton,
Here.
Secretary Bacher,
Here.
Commissioner Rubis,
Here.
Alternate Quarterneck,
Here.
Commission Liaison Broyles, not here. Council Member Liaison Nyon.
Here.
And Council Member Liaison Rambo.
Here.
All right, we definitely have a quorum.
Very good. We need to have some opening remarks. I would like to say we have a star among us tonight. Front page of the Eureka Leader has our liaison from the Route 66 Task Force, Nolan, right on the front page with a great big smile. Do you ever see him without a great big smile? Way to go, Nolan. We're happy for you.
Thank you.
I don't think you want to listen to me tonight because we know we all want to know what is going on with SWT Design and what they have to show us tonight. So I'm going to be quiet and continue on. Do we have anyone for public comment?
Madam Chair, we do have a few in attendance, Brianna with SWT and then Miss Scott, but they've not, if they'd like to speak, they've used the raise hand feature. And I've received no speaker's card. Thank you.
Okay.
And don't forget about the minutes.
Pardon me? Minutes. Yes, we did have a good set of minutes. Did anyone find anything that was missing or needed to be changed in the minutes that were distributed? Well, hearing none, we will approve them by general consent. And I believe that gets us down to Route 66 Roadside Park Project Update. No, that's minutes. Wrong piece of paper. Excuse me. But we are down to Route 66 Roadside. So, Robin, are you going to start off with that?
The gray button. I keep forgetting about that. The long-awaited evening is finally here. We are nearing the final phase of our Route 66 master planning process. And SWT Design is here this evening to present a concept to you that at least the department feels has been very well done, particularly in taking the input from this project team and incorporating it into this final preferred design. So I'm very, very, very excited to have them present to you this evening. And without further ado, I will turn this over to Scott Rundy.
Or Bonnie Roy. I'll pretend I'm Scott for a little bit. We're going to tag team this tonight. So good evening, Commission. We could not be more excited to share with you where this project has landed, which is really just the beginning, if you think about it. I'm going to walk us through sort of the process that we've been through to get to where we are tonight, and then let Scott really steal the show with where things have landed. So just a little bit of a reminder. We started months and months and months ago, if you might recall, gathering ideas, thinking about what this roadside park really wants to be, understanding the site, walking the site on a really cold day, if you recall that. We've had lots of engagement, both online and in person. We've really leveraged the student task force as well as part of the process, which has led us to exploring a number of different concepts. We came to this group months ago with about 4 different concepts. We weighed those concepts, got your feedback, which then narrowed us to 2 concepts. So if you recall, the last time we were here, we looked at A and B, talked about the pros and cons of those. There were certainly features of each that we think you all liked, but generally leaned more towards B. So just to refresh your memory, some of the feedback we heard at that time was really liking the layout of B, kind of the ribbon effect, but wanting some things like more shade, considering things like additional spray ground or fountain kinds of opportunities, and really wanting to understand where the interpretive opportunities would be within the plan. So with us today is really kind of how we've pulled all of that feedback into a final plan. We've got some great images to help you really understand what that space could feel like. So without further ado, I will let Scott come and share that. I'll also add, we had a bit of a little side journey with our student competition. We had 10 student submissions submitted, and throughout an evaluation process, really rose 3 of those submissions to the top of the pile. And with this commission's assistance, decided to really try to find a way to incorporate all 3 of those elements into the park design. So you will see all 3 of those. You can see on the screen here, kind of the play Route 66 sign and feature, the idea of really using the Big Chief concept and interpretive opportunities, as well as the mural. You will see all 3 of those kind of conveyed in the master plan. Now I'll hand it off to Scott.
Thanks, Bonnie. And thanks for having us here tonight. We're excited to present the plan. So what you see before you is the updated plan. As Bonnie mentioned, we used the concept B that we presented at the last meeting to move forward, and we kept a lot of the elements are the same, and we fine-tuned it per the feedback that we received the last meeting, and added more detail as well, as you can kind of see in this plan here. So the scheme is similar. A lot of the park amenities are located on the north part of the park. As we kind of identified in the analysis process, we found that was the ideal place for things such as the buildings, items that have foundations, features like play equipment, walls, that sort of thing. So that's where a lot of that element is landing. On the east side of that amenity area, we have the comfort station. And we're anticipating that that's going to have some theming to kind of match some of the historic character of some of the gas stations from the area of the Route 66 in this area. In the central part of the amenity space, that's where we have our playground plaza space. You can see the number 4 there. That's the photo op sculptural playground feature. The design of that was informed by the student design competition. We'll have some better images of kind of how that looks in a few seconds. And then on the west side of the amenity area, we have another node. It's kind of where the key entry from the south side of the park enters the plaza space. And we activated that kind of node with a splash pad water feature, along with some shade sails. Additionally, with providing shade, we have the shade trees planted throughout the park. We also have a number of umbrella tables. That's the number 8, located throughout the plaza space. Entries to the park. So we have vehicular entry through the roundabout to a parking lot. It's got, I believe, 10 stalls total, with 2 of those being ADA accessible. We also have pedestrian entries off the streetscape on the north. So number 14's there. And that's highlighted with some directional signage feature, interpretive signage. And some of the key interpretive other elements are the number 3 and the number 9. So we have the timeline walk that kind of bisects the plaza and really kind of serves to connect all the different pieces of the park together. And then on the south end of that, we have number 9, which we feel is a smaller, more interpretive plaza as well. So we prepared some perspective renderings to kind of help visualize what this looks like. This one's from a bird's eye perspective, kind of looking down on the park. I feel like this does a good job showing how the timeline walk kind of connects the different elements of the park. Gives a good view of the layout of the playground plaza and the play feature. So the kind of the scheme of that design was driven from one of the student design competition submissions. See the comfort station there. We're starting to hint at some of the architectural cues from the era, from the Route 66 era. Also kind of want to point out some of the features of the landscape and the plantings in this one. So the incorporation of the shade trees to help provide shade and comfort to the plaza spaces. Also the landscape, the plantings, the border shrub plantings along the retaining wall to kind of help buffer that edge, and also the street edge to help buffer the street edge there as well. This is kind of more of a eye level view, showing what it looks like interfacing with the streetscape. So trying to show what the form of the plantings look like. A key thing that we're trying to show here is that we're trying to create a real open sense of view into the park to make it inviting for pedestrians passing by, but also to be really attractive to vehicles, bicyclists using Manchester Road as well. Really wanted to show how some of the features in the plaza, like the photo op sculpture element, kind of pops from a street level view. Let me step back a little bit. Kind of also see in some of these elements, we're starting to hint at some of the interpretive elements that could be incorporated, such as the signboard on the comfort station, incorporating elements like the gas pumps. We're thinking these could be, retrofitted or repurposed possibly as charging stations. So we have a couple here shown at the comfort station. I believe we're also showing one in the parking lot. Potentially that could be electric vehicle charging station. The next slide here, this is focusing on the South Entry Plaza. What our intent would be, and I'll have an image that kind of shows this a little bit better, would be to have this plaza etched with graphics or engraved, potentially medallions to kind of help tell the history of the plaza and of the Route 66 era. This image also shows well some of the materiality of the hardscape. So we'd probably have decorative pavements for the plaza space, concrete for the walkways, and the building materials for the walls. You kind of see we're hinting at a Ozark fieldstone for the wall material. And we tried to lay out the walls and the grading to create not only definition of spaces and a sense of space, but also other opportunities for seating. So a lot of the walls are seat wall height to add to the comfort of the space. This is a view looking east from the west end of the park down the timeline walk. Kind of see some of the elements, the shade elements that we're incorporating in the park with the shade sails, the water play area, also the kind of seating area with the umbrella tables. We're also thinking this area would be where we could place the park sign. And this is that sketch is incorporated in this from one of the task force members. And with this slide, I'm trying to kind of point out how some of the different interpretive elements could be incorporated and how we're showing that in the schemes that we developed. So on the left image, that's the interpretive plaza, showing how you can incorporate some of the etched graphics, engraved graphics into the pavement. Maybe this is representative of the Route 66 alignment through the area. Also incorporating elements such as the pavement medallions. Maybe these could tell small stories that are significant to the area. You could also incorporate interpretive signage, such as the top left image there, interpretive boards. We're thinking these could be mounted to the seat walls or next to the seat walls. These would be more graphic displays, graphic display elements. Another thing to point out on this image is the interpretive play equipment itself could house some of that as well. And what we're showing there is another one of the submissions from the student design competition on the backside of the photo op play element. The comfort station itself, the architecture, we think would speak to the era and could also incorporate additional wall signage. I mentioned the historic gas pumps. We're thinking at the entryway, that's where we could house some of the interpretive directional signage at the entry off the streetscape there. Then similar to the South Plaza space, the Tom Line Walk could be etched with interpretive information and graphics as well. So cost opinions. What I'm trying to do with this slide is compare where we were at with concept B on the last presentation and where we are currently. So right now we're looking at about $1,632,000 for the whole park construction. So including things such as utilities, site prep, the hardscape features, the playground features, the landscape plantings, furnishings, starting to hint at the architecture and interpretives. The increase in large part was due to the splash pad water play area, incorporating that plus the shade sails. Few other notes on this. This doesn't include inflation escalation. So this is our kind of current construction price, best guess at this point. The next steps, where do we go from here? So our goal is to obtain feedback from you all tonight. We'll finalize our concept based on that feedback. And then I believe we're scheduled in early January to present the concept to City Council for approval. And once we receive that, then we'll start looking towards project funding allocation. And then further developing the design. So design development of the building architecture, elements such as the interpretive graphics, and then also looking at final design, engineering, permitting coordination, and ultimately with the bidding and construction after that. I believe that's it. I'll open it up to questions, and if there's any other slides you all want me to go back and kind of look at further.
Questions, comments? Yeah.
The shade sails
Yep.
and the umbrellas, what kind of material are the shade sails in the umbrellas?
So the shade sails would be like a fabric material. But we were thinking the umbrella tables would be a fixed metal canopy umbrella. So that way they don't need to be taken down seasonally. They can remain out year round. I believe the shade sails would probably need to be stowed away in the wintertime. But that's what we were thinking with those two.
In the plantings, is there irrigation figured in? that?
Yes. Yep.
Great. I'm sure those are deer-proof plants you're working on in Wildwood.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we haven't, this is really just for form kind of purposes only at this point. But yeah, that'll definitely be a consideration as we move forward into the kind of the detailed design.
The charging stations, what all is that going to encompass? Those gas pumps?
Yeah, so I think that would probably be a custom product. I don't know if there's an off-the-shelf, kind of replica element like that, but that's something we could potentially look into, is incorporating a replica feature like that kind of functions as well as a charging station.
Mhm.
Yep.
I'm curious if it could also function as like a bicycle care station of sorts. And I guess as a follow-up question, was bicycle infrastructure addressed in
Yeah,
this?
actually, thank you for pointing that out. I glossed over that. On 18 and 10 on the backside of the comfort station. So we have at that location, that's where we would put a drinking fountains. We also have bike parking and a bike repair station allocated for that area as well. Yes.
Is it safe to assume that drinking fountains would include like a bottle filler at this point?
Yeah. Typically, when we work on parks and comfort stations like this, it usually has a bottle filler element incorporated.
See, probably next meeting. Square footage allocation. How many square feet for the parking lot? How many square feet for the water feature?
Yeah.
How many square feet for picnic? We kind of get flavor for.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I can do that.
And we're using the trees for part of the shade elements. About what size will we be planting? Will we get shade very soon?
I think it will take a few years to grow in and really to have that kind of effect of the comforting shade. I think we, typically on a project like this, we would use like a 3-inch minimum caliper for starting. And that, before they start casting a good amount of shade, maybe 5 years or so. So there definitely will be a little bit of grow in period for that. We could investigate, looking at larger tree canopies to start. That'll increase the budget a little bit, but in key areas around some of the central plazas, it may be worth looking into.
Because I was looking at the parking lot where in a evening time parking for the lights going into the homes across there. Trying to buffer some of that.
I kind of skipped over that part too. 19. So we're thinking that would be a solid screen wall fence to kind of help buffer some of that
Okay.
light going off into the southern properties. And on the backside of that, we would have buffer plantings as well. And those would be probably more faster growing evergreen trees that we could incorporate into there as well.
How many families could you accommodate for?
It's a good question. I don't know if I've done any takeoffs or I would say, each of those picnic tables probably has about 4. So that's probably about 20 there. I would say, probably like a 30-person kind of picnic would be comfortable in this space without and still allow for other users to kind of use the park as well.
6, 5.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think you've addressed everything we've asked for, at least what I've asked for. I think this is it's ideal. I think we're ready to move on and finalize this.
Great.
You're to be commended because it's just great.
Yeah.
Great. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's fun now.
Will this concept be posted on our website? So the neighbors and residents can see it. I'd like to get buy-in from the neighbors to the south. And I think if there's a fence up there, a screen wall, and then with a hedge growing up there later, I don't see what they have to complain about. I think I'd really be looking forward to this if I were living there.
Joe, do you have a line in the sand, budgetary line in the sand? Yes. That's my point. So at some point, we have to, from where we are to where we need to be. And what do you recommend the process?
As Mr. Rundy described in one of the last slides, there's a process that follows that'll probably take, in my mind, most of 2023. And we do have what I believe funding to accomplish that. And that's the process of taking this concept once finalized, as Mr. Scott has identified, getting it to City Council for their support. Once that support's generated and there's an endorsement, then we move into those next steps that Mr. Rundy described. We've got to do design, we've got to do engineering, get some true cost estimates through the bidding process. And typically with just all the things our consultant may have to do and what we have to do, it usually will take us through most of the year. And then hopefully in 2024, we'll be in a position to add to what we've set aside in 2023. And so I don't know if we'll even come close to $1.6 million at the end of the process, but we'll also be looking for grant opportunities. And we hope that there's some out there that we've never explored before, like with the federal government, given their support of Route 66, et cetera. So unfortunately, I think we've got another year, let's say of 2023, of kind of looking at getting the paperwork done, so to speak, before we can actually put a shovel in the ground. Thank you.
Yes, Jim.
Joe, if what you're saying is that be prepared to pair.
Either be prepared to pare it down, or one of the questions eventually we'll ask whoever ends up doing the design engineering bid specifications, because we're getting very close to ending the contract with SWT Design. Certainly they would be one of the firms we would contact. But what I would suggest is maybe look at some phasing. The first initial phase would be all the things we need to make the park function, like utilities, parking, maybe the comfort station, some of it, and then coming back in successive years and adding in the amenities. And that's a process the Historic Preservation Commission will be intimately involved with. We wouldn't do a phase without the support of the commission, given your role that you've had to date, and then ultimately try to sell those phases to City Council.
Thank you. Anyone else? Think we gotta go. Robin?
May I ask a question of our student task force member in the
Yes.
audience? Nolan, do you believe this captures what the student task force has provided in terms of input?
Yeah, I think it has everything that like any of our task members have mentioned or wanted. It kind of just encapsulates everything, like it combines all of our ideas that we have had into just one really cool park.
Good. Thank you. Jim?
So what one feature do you think would sell this park to the town? What is the one big thing that you think they would know?
I think it would either be the electronic gas pumps or with the design competitions like slide play thing that they have. Those were probably the two that I would think would be the most important to the Route 66 task force.
Good. Nice to see that
Thanks, Nolan.
things that we've suggested are in there. That's the important thing. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
So from the perspective of the department, and I believe our consultant on this particular project, if there are any components that you see once you get a paper copy of the overall package, we would ask that you provide them to the department, and then we can forward them on to SWT Design so that they can kind of bundle the package together and have all of your comments. I know you, for the most part, Robin and I had a chance to see it a couple hours ago, this set of diagrams and photographs and slides. You're seeing it for the first time. So there might be an opportunity just to kind of sit down with it and take another look. And so we'll get you that information tomorrow, and maybe if you can get it back to us in about a week's time, if you have any additional thoughts, we'd sure appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. That brings this part to an end, correct? Yes, Rob. Real thumbs up, Scott. Thank you. Rob?
For all your hard work. Yeah, I just had a quick comment. Tracy and I were talking, there's a number of elements here that I just didn't want to, bore everyone with a bunch of details, but we will definitely avail ourselves of that opportunity to provide feedback, and hopefully it will get captured and then redistributed amongst the group and others. I think it's going to be tough to come up with funding all at one go, but Tracy's suggestion was phasing, and then someone else mentioned it. So we're all kind of thinking along the same lines. I do want to say that I love the fact that the splash pad's in there, because a lot of families were really interested in that. I think the charging stations may be a bit problematic. I didn't see any place to get a car up next to the charging station, for example. So we'll have to work through those details, and that's kind of what the kind of feedback that I'm hoping to provide. But anyway, I love it as a concept, and I think you guys did a great job. So thanks very much.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And sticking with the theme of Route 66, the Student Route 66 Task Force update.
So in our last meeting, we went to the Wildwood Historical Society, and we got to see the museum they have, see like the buildings and learn about the history of it a little bit. And later in that, we also talked about, with the Pond School Carnival, we were thinking, me and the task force were thinking about setting up like a table there where we could have some sort of game, or like, like snacks or something that's all Route 66 themed. When the Pond Carnival comes. So that's what we have done in our last meeting, pretty much.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything to add, Robin?
I think Nolan covered it well.
I think he did too. That was a fun time when we were at the Historical Society and seeing the museum. So that brings us to the Essen Log Cabin update. Wow, we're marching right along.
Yes, ma'am. I'll slow things down for you. How's that? I've been accused of being verbose, so we'll see. Madam Chair and members of the commission, the department is providing you tonight some additional information on the Essen Log Cabin. As you know, recently the commission decided on a location, and that's Village Green. And as part of that decision, the department had CDI, the engineering firm that is working on the Village Green Phase 1 plan, stake the location of the proposed cabin at the desired place. As part of this, we're on to now the next step, and that is to engage a firm to help us develop the design and engineering plans for bidding purposes. As you know, we had an architectural firm kind of recreate what we have in terms of an inventory, but we've never put it all together, so to speak. And as is described in the memorandum, we do not have a foundation. We do not have doors and windows, and we do not have a roofing system. So that's part of it all as well. So tonight, the department has prepared for your consideration the draft request for qualifications. That draft request for qualification lacks a couple of things: the issuance date and when we would anticipate the return in responses. However, the request for qualifications follows the general format, in that it identifies the project, a general statement relating to the project, the specific task, the process used to evaluate the request for qualifications that are provided, and then some additional information that we have in all of these types of documents. So tonight, the department is requesting any comments on the request for qualifications. With those comments, we'll incorporate them into the document, have that document for you at the next meeting of the commission for final action. And then we'll proceed forward with sending them out to the firms we know that have qualifications, and then doing our general advertising to capture anybody that might be interested. With that, Madam Chair, the department, Travis, Robin and I are available for any questions or comments.
Anyone have questions or comments? Chris?
Related, do you know anything about the work that Chesterfield has just recently done on the north side of Wild Horse Creek towards the bluff? In terms of taking a bunch of houses down, it looked like an old cabin. Do you know anything about what they've done? Okay, I saw some roofing and didn't know. I don't have any idea what they were doing there, other than there was a cabin there and that had a house built around it. The cabin stayed and then the cabin was gone. So I didn't know if they're maybe materials or who knows what.
I do not know I do not have any information, nor do I know of any of the circumstances you just described. But I will tell you that recently, the director of the St. Louis County Department of Parks and Recreation, Tom Ott, contacted me, and they were doing a reassembly of a cabin. Not necessarily the same circumstances we have of theft, but there was a gentleman that works for the department that was integral in getting everything pulled together, and I have his contact information. So as part of our process, Tom Otts offered him to kind of give us some guidance. And so the thought is to have him come to a meeting and just kind of talk about what they went through in terms of their process, the pitfalls they found, the good contractors, or the things they learned that they wish they would have knew at the start, those kinds of things. And so from that perspective, also, they had a set of plans. So I already know a firm besides Pattern and Ives that will get the request for qualifications. And if there's no objection, I will probably send one to SWT Design just to see if they have an interest or some experience in this as well.
Jim?
Do you have a list of the companies that we will target with our RFQ?
I have a short list, not probably as lengthy as we do for infrastructure projects or general park design components, but I do have a short list. There's about 5 or 6.
And then hopefully offer that public advertising.
Yes, and we do it through the county, which is the legal paper, but we also do the website, our social media, we post it here. So there's a number of ways to get the information to the appropriate community.
And your relationship with St. Louis County.
Yes, obviously they had to do what we did, maybe not to the extent because we're lacking key components of the building. But I'm going to depend on them quite a bit as well to get us to that first step.
Tim Gilby still in?
Well, I've told that story until you're probably tired of it, but he told me he was retired and walk out to the top deck of the garage and who's there knee deep in all the logs. And it's like, well, I'm semi-retired. So I'll probably contact him and Workhorse Construction, younger gentleman that was kind of the protege, and just ask them who they would recommend in terms of a firm.
There's someone.
If you would share with us that list,
Certainly.
yeah, and put together and email it to us. I'd like to look at it
And if you have anybody that you would recommend,
yes.
I'd love to have them on the list too.
Yeah.
Dan, did you have your hand?
Yeah, Jill and Robin particularly. Your earlier comment about these present. Sounds like a training.
I didn't hear the
Is your
last.
mic on?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it said it sounds kind of like a training opportunity. Maybe we can work around that.
Yes.
Put it on the book.
I think, and as the memorandum states, the city council in the initial budget that was presented in November, just this past month, there's $140,000 still in there for the reconstruction. And that was based upon Tim Kilby's bid and Workhorse Construction bid. Now they're years old. And obviously we know inflation had created a devil of a time. But I like to think we're primarily paying for labor, not necessarily materials.
A week or two ago, there was a spot on Channel 5 about the reconstruction of the African-American schoolhouse up in Faust Park. And there was a church group that was in there doing work for the day. Are we giving any thought to any volunteer work by any groups in the future on this?
It's a good question, Madam Chair. When we did the renovation of Old Pond School, a lot of what we used the volunteer corps for was cleanup, just kind of getting things out of the building that shouldn't be there, like the hanging ceiling, just some of the fixtures, the old fixtures, things like that, that were from the school district. And then some of the cleanup of the grounds. So I don't know how much. We always have that issue of liability, workman's compensation, waivers, things along those lines. And it is part of a larger project for Village Green. So I'll have an answer for you eventually.
Okay, just wanted to bring that out for some thought.
Thank you.
And anyone else?
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I think it's important in doing this that it be historically accurate. And I think we may be in a sort of the log cabins that were built in the 1800s in this area of west of St. Louis may be entirely different than those that were built, like the little house on the prairie out in the middle of no place. The fact that there was a very large city at that time within a day's drive makes things like cast iron stoves a little more handy than it would be if you were out in the middle of no place. So I'm just wondering, I really would like to make this as accurate as possible as to what it was then. And I'm just wondering if there's some help available from the Missouri, through the historical group in Missouri, be able to get some research on this or make it available. I've been doing some searching on online for this, and I come up with log cabins in Tennessee and every place else, but it's hard to find out exactly what were they building then. Was there milled lumber then available? Or obviously we're floorboards, so, and I don't know, but logs were very plentiful and that's what they used when they could. So I just think it's important that this doesn't become a Disneyland log cabin, but it really is an accurate representation of what was there. Plus, I think we have to decide what time we're going to stop this, because a log cabin could have been built and it would have had oil paper over the windows, and then 10 years later they put windows in. So at what point do we stop? And there could be additions up until the turn of the century, built in 1880. There could have been additions built 1900. Do we say, okay, well, we're not going to include that, or we will, or when do we stop? So I just think it's really important to look and see what was being done at that time in this area. And we need to do more research on this.
And certainly that's something the department can accommodate, and we'll do our best. We're probably not experts like some, nor do we have the time, the plentiful time like others. What I was hoping though is that whatever firm ultimately is chosen or recommended by the commission and chosen by city council has that level of expertise as well, that they've done it elsewhere. And that's part of the request for qualifications, and they can answer those questions.
Yeah.
The good questions you've asked with appropriate answers.
Yeah. I think that's what I was getting at. Want to make sure we have a firm that can do that. We select a
Exactly.
firm and they know that that's one of their qualifications that we'd be looking for.
Very good. I certainly.
Rob?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank our resident architect, Mr. Scott, for his detailed effort to analyze what we had. It was very helpful to me. I'm probably the only person here other than him that's been in his attic, but I appreciated those pictures of his own house.
You're all welcome to my attic.
You may not want to go, but The foundation, you mentioned that we don't have the foundation. Was that stolen separately? Or, I mean, is it possibly still there, or some of the stones or something like that? We could avail ourselves of those?
I think the owners of property either removed some, but there may be some that just were pushed into the hole and covered up so it wouldn't be a hazard.
Okay, and Gailey, he's got pallets of stone, you said there, maybe we don't have to scramble as much as we think, and maybe we can save a few bucks on the materials. But actually, I wanted to Steve's point, there was a lot of local milling just for the reason you mentioned. There were, it was a big city at the time, and there were two kinds of manual mills. There was an up and down mill, which is two big old boys standing on platforms sawing back and forth, and then there were rotary mills that were steam powered. And so those 2x4 notches that you pointed out, I'm sure they were milled. We just have to figure out what's the most likely type of mill for the area, because it leaves different pattern on the wood. But I think we can figure that out. And I happen to have a cast iron stove in one of my chicken coops that says St. Louis, Missouri. It was cast here and it's ancient. And I was going to sandblast it and use it in my house. But if it works in the time period for this cabin, I'm happy to even refurb it and then, just give it to the city. I think that'd be very cool. If
Put a plaque on it.
I could, it just already says made in St. Louis. And just as an interesting aside, I have all kinds of stuff from 100 years ago that say made in St. Louis, because if you think about it, shipping was a big problem. And so everything was made locally, and there are all kinds of products that were made here locally that we now get from China. So I did have one question for you, Joe. The site, I went and visited, I think probably some other folks have, the front of the cabin faces a big old maple tree that seems like it's in fair shape, but it's a silver maple. It may be at the end of its life. But I'm wondering what our plan is for that, because it seems quite restrictive, right at the moment.
Again, not with the plan in front of me. My recollection is that, like a lot of landscape architects, silver maples, cedars, things along those lines, they see them as not prime specimens.
Yeah.
And I think the silver maple was intended to be removed.
Okay. All right. It's in good shape, but it's 70 years old. So,
Now, saying that, as you can see, thank you, Mr. Newberry, we have some flexibility. If the cabin's on the tail on the end of the dog, we can move that tail around and avoid things that we want to save and not necessarily harm the design. We'll still be in the general location, but if we move it 5 feet this way or 10 feet that way, I don't necessarily see that as an issue right now.
yeah, I'm not even suggesting that it needs to be saved, but if it's there and it's not bothering anything, it'll cost the same to remove it now or remove it if it does start to decline. And if we tilt the cabin 10 feet one way or the other, we may be able to have a nice tree for 10 years before, while some of the other landscaping grows up.
Right.
So.
And if you go to Glencoe City Park, you'll see a lot of silver maples. They were, in some instances, destined to be removed because they're just not prime specimens. But we retained them. They dropped some limbs, branches, but they add some character to the park immediately that the landscaping just doesn't do because it's got to grow.
Exactly. So, and if it hasn't declined by this size, it may have a few more years left. A lot of them get this big and then all of a sudden they start dying at the top and whatnot. So it's worth looking into. Anyway, thanks very much.
Well, again, you received the draft of the request for qualifications. Maybe the same kind of process if you'd like to take the next week to look it over, have any comments, any additions. Be glad to wait. And then, as I say, take those comments, we'll incorporate them into the final document. You'll see the final document at the next meeting, and then we'll get to the business of getting it advertised.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we're going to move on to the 2022 work program update. We don't have much time left in 2022.
Well, Chair Stevens, funny you should mention that, because I was going to mention that. And I was
Great
going to
minds.
say, I don't have a whole lot to update you for the 2022 work program, because our minds are already kind of headed into 2023, as you might have seen later in your agenda. However, in order to have one accomplishment taken off our work program, we are working very hard to install that last final parking pad for the Orville historic marker. So I'll mention that. We are moving steadily along with the Wildwood history book, but I do not have a major update for you this evening. And next year, we will be working very hard on identifying grant opportunities and pursuing grant opportunities for our Route 66 roadside park project. But other than that, I will just open it up to any questions you have on specific items at this time. Thank you.
Any questions?
You mentioned the Orville parking pad, but and I drive by there quite often. There's a marker down in Monarch you can't really get to. There's a
Gotta find it
great
first.
big mud puddle in front of it. Is it possible to have a parking pull-off there and someplace that's a park? And I have yet to see that park enjoyed at all. It's a lot that the city has to keep mowed right now. And can we look at getting a parking pad down there? At least let somebody pull off and walk over and maybe even look at the tracks and cross that. Go past those signs that say don't enter, but at least people like to poke around the train tracks.
That cone.
Yes.
Oh, that Cohen Park, yeah, down there at the bottom of 109 of Etherton Road.
You have encapsulated the struggle with Cone Park very well. So, first I'll say that our water drainage problem comes from North Etherton Road, which is a St. Louis County arterial. We've done our best over the years to try to convince them that they need to help make the water problem go away. Because if we do something on the north side and the water's being generated on the south side of the roadway, it's still going to come our way. Saying all of that, we've had money in the capital improvements program for many years to do just exactly what you described, at least make it accessible so that if somebody wanted to pull off and just look at the park, look at the railroad tracks, look at the historic community marker, they could. We have some money scheduled for 2023. Given our workload, meaning the commission with Route 66 Park, a couple of other things that are on our work program. I don't know if we'll get to it, but if we do, we have some money.
Thank you.
Jan,
Dan,
question for everybody here. What about moving that marker down to the bicycle trailhead?
Would that still be Monarch?
It's closed.
No.
It kind of eliminates all these issues.
I don't know. I think everybody's trying to find a use or the reason for existence for that park.
Well, it's a place to get killed right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Where can I ask, where is that park? You were referring to? Is it at the bottom of Etherton?
Yeah.
Just right before Centaur? That's a park?
It's
It's a mud pit.
The railroad track.
Okay. I didn't realize that was a park. And there's a sign there too that I drive by every day and miss.
Yeah, Monarch.
there was a sign there.
It's back a ways, almost back towards the railroad track. It's set back maybe
Robin found it.
30
I was
feet.
just going to say, Chair Stevens and I both got very, very lost trying to find this marker to take photographs for the city website.
So the park is kindly called Long and Narrow Park. So what you see typically is just the tail, so to speak, but there's about a 2.5 acre parcel of ground to the west that is bounded by the railroad.
It does look like it actually could be a park space, except that it gets so muddy and, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't
And
know.
then we actually got a grant from the state of Missouri, and we had a picnic table down there. We had a couple of other trash can, a bike rack. Most of it got stolen. And so we kind of backed away from that. It was with some trepidation. We put our historic community marker there, knowing the past history. Fortunately, we've not had a problem.
Sounds like you hit it well enough. They don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of the idea, I think, but we'll get you some information on Cone Park, how we ended up with it, why we ended up with it. I even have the plans that were developed to basically create the parking area. And we've gotten county approval for them. But again, we're hesitant to proceed forward, first because of just cost. It was more than what we anticipated. But the county was unwilling to address the problem on the other side of the street. And we can't get the water to drain on that side of the street and go where it's supposed to go. We're going to end up having problems regardless. And so I'll get you some information and then you can see, we'll take, I'd be more than happy to hear your opinions and direction.
So you're saying on the north side of Etherton, on the south side of Etherton, that's the county?
The entirety of the right of way is St. Louis County arterial.
Oh, I see what you're
On the
saying.
south side of the right of way is the city of Chesterfield.
Okay.
And so there's another struggle, so to speak, because they have allowed some grading practices on that hillside that obviously our codes would not have accommodated.
They've been working. Yeah.
In the gully or the ditch or whatever you want to call it, that's supposed to carry the water off.
Yeah.
The beavers couldn't have done it. very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. But they've been working on that hillside, I know, driving through there.
But they gotta
They've
stay-
had
they gotta
one
stay
lane
on.
road. Yeah.
You don't drive through the puddle anymore.
Well, let me give you some background, you can look at some of the engineered plans and like I say, we've always kept a little bit of money in there to address the water problem, but there's always seems to be another priority somewhere. But if the commission wants to tackle it in 2023, we've got a lot of information already developed. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, Kurt.
So there's another marker that I think could use a parking pad too, and it's Church Road. Like everyone pull over there and read it. It's like, where do I park?
I just parked along the road, along Church Road, not,
Parking on Church Road. Shepherd. Shepherd. Guess I'll just pull over and read it sometimes.
I did, and a truck went by and they went like this as they went by me, so they were headed up to Westland Acres. So at least they saw that somebody was interested to go read it.
Well, Mr. Hensick, we're not ignoring your request. Quite frankly, we did the installations at the locations we thought best, and in the case of Westland Acres, with the support of Union Baptist Church and the residents, Miss Frazier and some others. But we kind of did it on the inexpensive side as well. So I take note of it, and we'll see if, as time goes on, if we can afford to maybe do something a little bit better there.
Okay.
Yes, Robin.
If I may, if we are going to move any historic markers, I suggest we do so when we're ready to update the next Wildwood Points of Interest map. Because, because part of that update was actually adding very descriptive language in there about where these markers were.
Forward, two back.
Paper over here. Anything else under old business that anyone wants to address at this time? If not, we'll move on to new business. And that's proposed 2023 work update.
All right, so it is that time of year where the department puts forth a draft work program for the next year. However, before I get into that, I thought, why not celebrate this year? Because we accomplished quite a bit. And in fact, I did submit our annual report today to the State Historic Preservation Office. If you want, we can go through their form and read all my little asterisks, but I thought this might be a little bit more fun. So here we go. What did we accomplish in 2022? Well, we are nearing the finalization of our Route 66 roadside park master planning process. Please play along. So congratulations. That has encompassed quite a lot of our time this year, and I think we're all very happy with that outcome. And we couldn't have done that without the help of the students, both the LaSalle Middle School students who won the student design competition. And of course, our student Route 66 task force, an innovative partnership between Rockwood School District and the Historic Preservation Commission. You have to participate on this.
Yeah.
Slow learners.
Yeah.
Age is just a number. All right, I took a look right before this meeting, and our virtual Route 66 tour has reached 4,000 views. And of course, I stole that Route 66 graphic from our Wildwood Points of Interest map, which is now informing locals who have lived here all their lives about where they actually live in Wildwood. So yay. And hopefully people can now find the Monarch historic marker because I put it in there. We chose a location for Essen Log Cabin.
Finally.
Come on, it took 2 years, right?
Slow down.
And we won an award. All right, this is the last one on there, so you got to do a big round of applause. So what are we thinking about going into 2023? Well, one, we need to get back to surveying our historic properties in Wildwood. So just as we did 2 years at a time in the last group, the department will be looking at possibly doing a few years at a time this next go around. And this will be identifying those properties that have now reached that 75-year threshold or will in those years. We are reconstructing Essen Log Cabin. We'll discuss this a bit more a little later in the agenda, but we are proposing a memorial plaque for Elijah Madison. We are continuing a partnership with the JP Connell House with St. Albans Properties. And we are beginning the Portner Park planning process, hopefully getting the neighborhood engaged in that. We're hoping to do some work, at least some design work for Bellevue Farms in the form of a new parking area and a trail connection. And finally, as we've discussed, there are some next steps for our Route 66 roadside park project. We're not done. I think I didn't put on there that we were also looking at potentially exploring a partnership with Westland Acres, because that's been on our agenda for a while. But otherwise, I think these are the highlights of what we're proposing going into this next year. So with that, I will close my presentation and ask if you have any questions for myself, Director Vunich, or Senior Planner Newberry. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of thought went into that. That's really great. Anyone have any comments, Jim?
The partnership with Westland Acre, they're coming up on their
100th.
100 year.
I believe they've already reached their 100th year, so we're a little late, but we'll get there.
Have we had any kind of initial contact?
That's what we're planning going into the next year. And that's what we do before we'd suggest any sort of project.
But that is deep, rich, historic parts of.
Absolutely.
How is the membership of the church doing? Is it holding steady? Do you know?
I guess that'll be part of this exploration.
On the fish fry. So
Yes. We'll
a
take
lot of
it.
you, a lot of young.
Well, that's actually
Yes.
really good to hear.
Anyone else? Travis, Nolan?
What will I be doing into 2023? Like, will I still be in this since I'm kind of just with the Route 66 task force? I know that's gonna wrap up soon. So will I be still in this historical commission, or how's that gonna work?
So Nolan, we have you slated to be with us at least through the school year. So I was thinking you would be with the commission at least through next May. And then we'll have to have another discussion about it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you, Robin. It looks like
Thank you.
our work's cut out for us. But we've been going at such a pace that I think we'll just keep going. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do want to commend Robin on the slide presentation.
Yeah,
Sometimes we look back and we look forward, but we never take a moment to kind of see what we've accomplished and enjoy the present. So you all did a great job, and a lot of it stems from Robin and her efforts in terms of historic preservation. So I want to thank
a
you.
lot of it goes back to what you all in your department are doing to help us do
Yeah.
the things that we do.
Pushing.
I'd
Just
say
set
this has
up
all
your
been a
web
real
design.
sorry.
Plain.
I'd say this has been a real community effort this year. It's just been amazing to see so many people involved. And I think that's absolutely what we want with historic preservation. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Madam Chair, I do have a request of the commission. If the proposed 2023 work program is acceptable, I'd ask for a motion and second to adopt it. And that'll be kind of our marching orders for the next 12 months.
Hey, I'm ready. And Dan?
Second.
Second by Alan. Any other discussion? Yes, Rob.
I want to ask folks again to really try to remember that my family name is Pertner and not Portner. And it's like fingernails on a blackboard every time I hear it. Portner. And I know that's an uphill battle because there's no good way to write it. And it used to be P-O only with the umlaut above it. And then they changed it to P-O-E, but it's pronounced Pertner. So and some of my family members, the black sheep of the family, have sort of given up and they just go ahead and say Portner, but it's Pertner. So I don't know if it's even worth fighting because I'll never win that battle. But if we ever put up a Pertner Park sign, we can have that as an explanation, as, you know, a little plaque or something. We could do that. We could do that.
I
Well,
can
then
assure
we're
you,
ready to take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion to adopt this for our work project for 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion has passed.
thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it very much. And to the members of the commission, thank you as well. One of the items under new business is not ready tonight, and that's our memorial tribute program. So my apologies. I've talked with the chair and we'll look maybe at January, having something back, but I have some thoughts about it. As you know, we spent a great deal of time developing it. We've yet to have a nomination to it. So I kind of wanted to maybe talk with you about that in 2023 as well. The
So we
next,
know the holidays are going to be taking up a good portion of the time between now and the next meeting. So if we can't get to it at the early January meeting, which is our December meeting, we will take it on into the end of January for our January meeting. So we'll give you plenty of time
Thank
so
you,
that you
ma'am.
can do the good job that you always do.
I appreciate it, but I have a lot of people to help me and make me look better than I am. So thank you. And I'm going to depend on Ms. Nyan and Mr. Rambo to help on this particular issue, but the request for Old Slave Road name change has finally made its way to the city council. That occurred in November of this year. And during the discussion, there was an amendment to the motion to require the plaque that had been discussed first here at the meeting in July of 2022. The motion included a description of Old Slave Road, a description of the cemetery that's on Old Slave Road, and then a description as well of Elijah Madison, the namesake of the new name. And so from that perspective, there has not been a lot of details because it didn't get final passage because of the amendment that's scheduled for December 12th. But I wanted to advise you that progress has been made in terms of the request by the property owners that reside along Old Slave Road. And I also wanted to advise you that in discussions with the Director of Public Works, he believes that there's a role for the Historic Preservation Commission, as us three do as well. And so from that perspective, I'm just providing you an update. And if the council members have anything they'd like to add, certainly I think we can play a role as the commission in helping make that plaque as nice as the ones that we won the award for. But again, those decisions have yet to be finalized by city council, but I wanted to keep you up to date.
I think it will be finalized at our next meeting. I don't think that we had discussion. I don't think anybody else will be coming forward and changing anything. So I think that's kind of a done deal, and then we can move forward on it. I guess it depends how much information was intended to be on the plaque. You know, is it going to be pages of information? I mean, I guess that's what we have to iron out. It's like only can fit so much. So
Well, the discussion concerned almost literally whitewashing history, and there was some heartburn about that, particularly from one council member. I certainly understand that, and that was kind of my concern with it. But if everyone there wants to change the name, the best we can do to honor that past is to document it so that it doesn't get forgotten. So we'll ensure that the historical commission here gets tons of input on what the sign is supposed to look like and say.
Yeah, no action required. I just wanted to ensure that you knew what was occurring, and I think there's a future role for the commission to help with the description. The process after it left Historic Preservation Commission was the Administration Public Works Committee, because the ordinance for name changes associated with existing streets is through Public Works. And then it went to City Council. So from that perspective, you started the process and then it went on elsewhere. I still think there's a role for you all, and I hope through the process, we'll be able to provide your all's input into how best to develop an appropriate plaque or marker and the content contained therein.
Yes, Jim.
Do you envision this marker would be in the same motif as our historical marker as far as like size?
It certainly could be. I think Ms. Nyan kind of touched on the component that we're all kind of trying to figure out. As you know, on Wild Horse Creek Road, we have the kelp marker. We had no place to put it. It's next to a bridge. There's really not a good place to stop, go over and look at it. And I'm afraid we might be dealing with the same thing here. But those are good problems, and we'll figure them out, hopefully collectively as city council, the committees of city council and this commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, well, that brings us down Now to the site visit that some of us went to on a very blustery afternoon.
Just waiting for some slides. All right, well, I'll get started. Well, Madam Chair, members of the board, as you know, the department did receive a request for demolition of a single-family dwelling and an accessory structure located at 2612 Walnut Avenue. The primary structure was dated circa 1947, according to both St. Louis County records and our surveyor. On November 16th, the department did conduct a site visit along with 3 members of this commission, including Commissioner Roughton, Secretary Bockert, and Chair Stevens. For those of you who need a refresher, the single-family dwelling in question is located to the east of Walnut Avenue, just to the south of Manchester Road in our Pond Historic District. And I think I can actually do my thing. And that is Big Chief that I'm circling here. And then Travis has been so kind as to circle the subject lot. Okay, this is the front of the residence in question. It is a 1-story ranch home. And just to the rear of it is the accessory structure also proposed for demolition.
No way we could say.
I know, it's a real tragedy. These are the plans that were submitted by the petitioner or by the applicant. So you can see the primary residence here and the accessory structure there. So first we'll talk about the residence. This is the rear of the dwelling. This is looking to the northwest. This is the southern side of the structure. And this is the northern side of it. This is under the portico. And this is inside the residence, which I believe only our director was brave enough to go in there. And many members noted the very strong smell of mold. Possibly. Oops, sorry. Going a little too fast. So there's another room in there. Here's some of the flooring. There's a rail. There's another room, some brick. And moving on to the accessory structure. This gives you just a little bit more perspective. I don't have the answer to that question. Okay, so Director Vunich does confirm that his understanding, at least, is that it was a rental. So this just gives you some broader context of the area around the structure. I believe this is the neighboring lot, actually. This is looking up Walnut, we're looking down Walnut Avenue towards the south. And then this is looking north. And
Private street and post.
Yeah. And then this is across Walnut Avenue. So no recommendations were discussed at our site visit, given the lack of quorum of the commission. So this evening, the department does respectfully request that you discuss the photos that you have seen and provide an action so that the applicant can move forward with their project.
Could you go back to the second picture, Karen? The next, go back. Okay, that yellow house, is that rather new? I mean, within the 10 years.
It looked
One at the
newer
end
to
there.
me, but I
The
don't.
yellow house.
The yellow one.
I think it's new siding. If you read, I think it's new siding.
I just wondering if, like Lindy Lane, you know, there's some interest in knockdown rebuild. You're right. Obviously, the guy wants to put a new home. This, that may be.
That is correct. Along with the submittal or the request for demolition, the applicant also went to the Board of Adjustment and requested a variance for a single family dwelling. And that was approved. Well, approved with conditions. Yes.
I was one of the two people that toured the inside of the facility. The floors are totally collapsed. There's no historical value in that house anywhere. It's very dangerous in its current state.
Yeah, I apologize for missing that meeting, but I haven't been in the house, but I've stopped there, walked around it, I've seen it. Yeah, I've got a problem with houses that young being of historical value. I think this is not representative of residential architecture of that time. I don't think the house has much value in historical value, and I don't see any reason to save it.
Alan?
Yeah, being one of the persons who was there that day, I'm going to move that we grant the request for demolition.
Is there a second? Dan, second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yes, raise your hand, whatever.
Yes,
Aye. Okay, anyone against? Grant.
All right, thank you.
Robin, can I ask you a question? What was the zoning? Because I got the card and
It is non-urban residence district.
non-urban.
I'm sorry, what?
And do they want to change it from non-urban?
No, they're going to build under that non-urban designation, but it is a substandard lot, just under half an acre.
Okay, yeah, I read the card and we just forgot what they were asking.
The neighbor was very kind and was with us quite a bit while we were there. I think he's anxious to see something done as well.
Yeah.
How do the neighbors feel about that being done?
Commissioner Hensick, the neighbor Chair Stevens mentioned is Randy Herberg. He's lived on Walnut Avenue as long as I can remember, and that's at least the middle of 1980. He was at the site visit. He actually helped us get access to the building so we could see the interior. And I believe from my conversations with Mr. Herberg, he's pretty anxious to see something change. He is concerned about wastewater treatment of any new construction. And when Robin mentioned that the Board of Adjustment granted relief to the side yard setbacks to accommodate a 26-foot distance versus 30 feet. The Board of Adjustment gave latitude to the city to basically require whatever we believe is necessary to ensure that wastewater treatment is done effectively and consistently. And so Mr. Kelly, the owner of the property, is, I think, acutely aware now that Just putting a drain field in and 2 tanks isn't probably going to make it work there.
Thank you. He seemed to keep wanting to let us know that he will do it the right way. That was given to us several different times in conversations that afternoon. You could tell he was saying, please, please, without using those words.
No, are they on wells or is that Missouri American Water there? Sorry. That's fine.
My understanding, and this is partially from memory, that was part of the old public water district that served a lot of Rover and Pond. So I actually think they are on public water now through Missouri American's purchase of the system.
Okay.
I did not see a wellhead anywhere. That's one of the things I was looking for in the rear yard area, although I did notice this old cistern by that big.
Yeah, I thought
old-
one of those pictures, it looked like the top of the system.
Yeah,
What's his alternative? Can't do it correctly with 2 drain fields.
well, Mr. Kelly developed that newer house on Woods Road at the foot of Artisan Point, that subdivision that has that road that kind of goes up almost at a 40-degree grade. That, if you're familiar with that lot, there's actually a rock face that backs to the house backs to, and then almost the entirety of the front area is rock, just the rock shelf itself. And so what he ended up providing there to treat wastewater was this contained system. It's 3 boxes, so to speak, that have peat in it. And basically the effluent circuit, there's still a tank that captures the solids, but all the water goes into this peat system. It requires a lot more maintenance because the peat has to be changed out more frequently. But you can pretty much treat wastewater to a tertiary level, and there's very little discharge of any of the liquid. So he did that system to make that project work there. He's already noted that he's probably going to have to do it on this lot if we follow the direction we've provided him to date. So, but that area has a lot of wastewater treatment problems. In fact, during the summer, a lot of Maple Avenue, there's still surface discharge, some of the older homes. So we don't want to add to the problem, and we want to correct the problem. And we did try to correct the problem because we were going to offer a neighborhood improvement district to bring MSD sewers there. But we couldn't get enough support among the property owners to take on what would be a 20-year bond note, so to speak.
The new house that's being built on Christie Avenue. I don't quite understand the system, but he has a CPVC pipe that runs from his tanks right out to the ditch on the road. It's like, it'd be interesting to see what that system is. They can do that.
Well, I can pretty much tell you can't. So we'll take a look.
Yeah, you want to try to take a look at it.
It doesn't sound right. It usually there has to be somewhere in between where treatment occurs. So it's on Christie, you said again?
Christie, yeah, like it's right when you come down Christie, right before you go to the left-hand turn. It's a new house. You got a big garage, huge garage he built there in the house.
I'll have code enforcement go by and take a look, let you know.
Yeah, it's like, wow, they got some new kind of system. They can do this.
Hey, no other items are listed. Does anyone have anything that needs to come before us this evening? Yes, Chris.
I have a question. So on to the agenda for today, it shows the next meeting is the 26th of
Yes.
January. You mentioned an early January meeting too. So do we have another
Yes.
meeting before then? I was under the impression that we typically don't.
Not to my knowledge. I believe our next meeting is that January.
I have it on my calendar as that first Thursday in January as well. I don't know where I got that.
In the past, we've not.
We don't have one
we-
in December.
Yeah, well, we have November's in early December and then we meet again at the end of January from my recollection.
Okay.
That is my understanding as well. We just adopted we've adopted it, right? The new city council, or the city council just adopted a new city calendar for the next year. And so our next meeting will be at the end
Okay, okay.
of January.
Very good.
Maybe the 26th.
And I see the age-old problem we have in turning to the new year of getting the right year on things. You know, when you start writing a check, which you don't do that much of anymore, it's like, oh, make that 2 into a 3.
Yeah.
So and Betsy, other people have that problem too.
Okay.
Check a couple months ago, I put 2012. in. He came back, the bank wouldn't take it.
Well, I would like to wish everyone a very great holiday season.
Yes.
And who knows, there may be some snow coming. And just get your items for the French toast. And I understand there's another ingredient that's been added to the French toast ingredients. Don't forget the toilet paper.
Oh.
Okay.
That's what I've seen online at various places.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
oh, you're quite welcome. I just
Good.
hope everyone has a great time and is able to be with family because that's what it's all about.
if I may, yeah, I would just like to thank, Robin and Joe and Travis for what they've done, and we wouldn't be here getting everything done that we're getting done without their the whole thing that what we're doing.
That's
So
right. It's
I want to thank you and wish you all Merry Christmas. We really appreciate
just
what you're
amazing
doing.
the hours that get put into just getting ready for our
Thank
meetings,
you.
and that's not their only job in life,
Right.
in their positions. So
You should all get
we
raises.
appreciate everything that you do. It's
Thank
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Jim moves.
Second it.
Steve seconds. Anyone
Yeah, can
have something else to say?
Thank the refreshment committee again for their wonderful.
Yes.
I think that was Robin this evening. Thank you.
This is the best meeting and. Thank you, Robin.
Okay, let's vote on our motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.